Well, the first thing that we learned was that it again gets back to this. If we wanted to go the easy route, if we wanted to go the route where we maximised income, then we would have signed with a major, no doubt about it. And I guess for a major it might have been a loss leader, or they might have made it back, we might have sold more albums worldwide than we actually did. But what it actually did was, and it was very interesting because the actual recording of the album took about 3 years, which which is a long time by anybody's standards. And it pretty much half killed us in doing it. And it was very, whether the band continued, it was very much in the balance. We did this, we had this little plan, our managers put it together, we finished the record, we knew we had this thing, we couldn't tell anyone. It was exciting, you know. We were I think there was our managers, the band, and there were about 4 others who knew what we were doing. And then Johnny, and we decided we were going to have a release day, we decided the way we were going to set it up. Johnny wrote something on the web, and it was amazing to see the effect of maybe 10 words written on a website and the way it just spread and fed throughout the world. And it was empowering. I mean, again, it's that thing you cannot, and it's something that you can't put into a profit and loss account, you can't put it into a balance sheet. It's this feeling of empowerment, it's this feeling of creativity. It completely rejuvenated us as a band. It made us, it got the creative juices flowing, and you can't put a price on that. That's the stuff that keeps you going, and again, that was the biggest thing that we learned. This kind of direct relationship, this exciting way of doing it, this way that was actually very empowering. We were coming up with the ideas, and actually, you know, there were some pretty good ideas. We didn't have to go to other people to seek their opinion. We sort of had a good, amongst 8 of us, we had a good understanding of the web, and what we were able to do and what we couldn't do, and and it was good because it was a very pragmatic discussion as well. At one stage, it was put that maybe it should be a digital release only, so no CDs at all, and that was the initial sort of stage, and there was a sort of a purity to it. It should be just the pay what you think this thing is worth, and that's it. A real statement, and there's something really lovely about that. But on the other hand, we realised that as a band that people get their music in different ways, and people want CDs. I still like CDs. I still like vinyl. I like something physical, but lots of people like it different ways. And we realised that was the other main thing, is the realisation about, even when you see it was the astonishing thing, I think, was that it went to #1 in Billboard in America, #1 in the album charts in the UK, having been released. It'd been out there for 3 months, so how does that work? Go figure. And what we realise is that human beings, we're all creatures of habit, so we like to get our music in very traditional way, or ways that are comfortable for us. So my mother, for example, I said, why don't you get it off our website? Why don't you get it you don't have to pay anything, Mum. She said, oh no, I can't do that. Why is that? She said, oh, I might get a virus. So she gets her music, she wants a CD, or she'll go to iTunes. That's a tried and tested way. So everybody likes to get their music in a certain way, and they don't really like to go off route with it. And it goes down to, I saw an analysis of the BitTorrent websites, and it's the same with the BitTorrent sites. People have their favoured sites that they go to, and they don't want to go to another one. So it's really interesting. It was a real lesson in, you have to make your music available in lots of different ways, and make it available to people how they want to consume it. Record companies take note. And I would also say that I think that it's very important to realise as a band. I mean, our experience within Rainbows wasn't done in isolation. We set it up and did the digital online thing, but we did it with Excel Beggars, and we did it with TBD in America. And our experience with them was fantastic. And I think what we need to get to a situation, what we had on our last record was an equitable and fair and balanced relationship between the record company and the band. And it's about a partnership. And I think the problem that's been, and certainly we felt it vis-a-vis EMI, not necessarily the people in Parlophone, but certainly with the business affairs and the legal side of it, it's not a partnership. It's very heavily weighted in favour of the record company. And I think you have to get away from that model. That model is it's outmoded. It's also the model that's being threatened at the moment. It's an analog model, and we're living in a digital era. It doesn't fit. It is as important as it's ever been, and probably more so when you're a bigger band, because you can lose touch with your fans. So, for instance, when we were signed in '91, we went out on the road in '92, and we opened up for everybody. And what we do after our opening set, in between the break and in the interval before the main band came on, we used to go and leaflet the audience, go around the audience, give them a sticker with our name on it. You know, just interact, and you're building your tribe. It's like your tribe, and it's really important. And you have to remember what it was like when you were a teenager, or when you were listening to music, when you were a student, when you were at those tender ages that when music means so much to you, and you have to. You have to build up this trust. And this trust, we always thought that this trust was, for instance, we always intended to make very different records. And that was the idea. And then no two records are going to be the same. So what you had to do was you had to build up the trust with your fans, for want of a better word, that they liked your last record, and they might have heard a bit of your new record and thought, this sounds a bit different, not sure about this, but there has to be that trust there that they go, we know that this might be challenging, or it might be a bit more difficult to get into, but there's something at the heart of it. There's an emotional content. There's something. It's not arbitrary, and that is hugely important. And I think now, I remember when we were making OK Computer, we were on the road a lot, and I think we were starting to feel slightly removed from the people who were coming to our shows. And I remember that this is 96, the end of 96, and there was this thing on our website we'd set up was a chat room. And I remember really well, we were in this amazing house, St Catherine's Court, outside Bath, in the library, and it was like we were actually communicating with people who were our fans on our chat room, and it was absolutely astonishing. It was exciting. It was so exciting, and that extended to Kid A, which was 10 years ago. We were in the studio. I did an online diary, which I guess is you call a blog now, and that whole thing has been absolutely key, because that is the thing in all of this that's sort of been forgotten, I guess, in a way, is over the years, that actually the key relationship is between the band and the people who like that band. And we have this wonderful means to do this now, to achieve communication through the web, through the internet. Well, it's the hot potato of the moment, isn't it? There's a part of me, a very strong part of me, that feels that peer-to-peer illegal downloading, and this is my own personal view, is just a more complete or a more sophisticated version of what we did in the 80s, and which was home taping. Maybe that's a bit naive, but I still believe that people, if they actually get into your music, that's a huge thing. What we used to do is classically, someone would buy the album, and it was when this whole home taping is killing music, sort of the skull and crossbones stuff, which we all laughed at because we were listening to lots of music, and if we really liked it, we went out and bought the album. Well, I think it's probably a bit different now, but I think what happens is very similar, that peer-to-peer legal file sharing happens, and if they really like it, some of them might go and buy the records, might buy the CD, but what we don't know yet is what those people also will go and buy a concert ticket, will go and buy a t-shirt. So there's been huge amounts of panic in all of this and saying, oh, this illegal file sharing is terrible, it's killing the industry, it's obviously in all things being equal, there wouldn't be illegal file sharing, but there is, and I have a problem about it when people, in the industry say it's killing the industry, it's the thing that's ripping us apart. I don't actually believe it is, because what we haven't seen yet, and we've had all sorts of research and stuff like that, but what we haven't actually had is anything that says, well, they might not buy a record, they might not buy an album, but they're spending their money on something else. They're buying concert tickets, they're buying, as I said, t-shirts, whatever. The business model has to change, and I think there are obviously certain parties that are very scared of doing that. There's a very, very, to me, there's a very, very easy, there's a very basic thing that needs to be done initially. What you've got to do is you've got to license out more music and have more websites selling more music, more Spotifys of this world, more websites. It's got to happen. You've got to make it slightly cheaper as well to get music, I think, in order to compete with the peer-to-peers. But you're right, more people are consuming more music than ever before. What happens with BitTorrent websites, everybody probably knows this, but it's a very utilitarian way of getting music. It's deeply unsexy, and I've said this before. If I was like the Richard Branson of nowadays would be able to license and set up a really amazing website for like 14 to 24-year-olds that deals with their music that they want, and it has really good content in it. It's all about content on the web. It's about the personal touch, and do something really, really innovative in that sense, and make it really easy for people to buy music, and cheap, because there's also there's another thing. A lot of 14 to 16-year-olds or whatever, 17-year-olds don't have credit cards. So how are they going to get music digitally? We haven't addressed this. These are very, very, very basic issues, and I find it staggering that the industry seems to be really dragging its heels on this, and this is stuff that you could do in 1 week. It's not, move quicker. And that's been the whole problem in the last 10 years, is that, why are we here now is because the industry dragged its feet, the recording industry dragged its feet over digital, Absolutely, and I think inevitably the business models it's an analog business model in a digital era. There's no doubt about that. The business model has to change, and I think there are obviously certain parties that are very scared of doing that. There's a very, very, to me, there's a very, very easy, there's a very basic thing that needs to be done initially. What you've got to do is you've got to license out more music and have more websites selling more music, more Spotifys of this world, more websites. It's got to happen. You've got to make it slightly cheaper as well to get music, I think, in order to compete with the peer-to-peers. But you're right, more people are consuming more music than ever before. What happens with BitTorrent websites, everybody probably knows this, but it's a very utilitarian way of getting music. It's deeply unsexy, and I've said this before. If I was like the Richard Branson of nowadays would be able to license and set up a really amazing website for like 14 to 24-year-olds that deals with their music that they want, and it has really good content in it. It's all about content on the web. It's about the personal touch, and do something really, really innovative in that sense, and make it really easy for people to buy music, and cheap, because there's also there's another thing. A lot of 14 to 16-year-olds or whatever, 17-year-olds don't have credit cards. So how are they going to get music digitally? We haven't addressed this. These are very, very, very basic issues, and I find it staggering that the industry seems to be really dragging its heels on this, and you know, this is stuff that you could do in 1 week. It's not, you know, move quicker. And that's been the whole problem in the last 10 years, is that, you know, why are we here now is because the industry dragged its feet, the recording industry dragged its feet over digital, you know. What are the big issues facing the 12 months from my perspective as a person in the band? Well, firstly, I think the biggest one, I mean, I think this year has been dominated by the whole peer-to-peer file sharing debate. And I think the biggest issue is record companies licensing out their music, making it readily available for people to start up sites, sell music online. That would be one major issue. I think the other one, which is really a general philosophy, and I think it's something that's been happening to the industry over the last 10 years, and certainly it's changed since we've been, you know, signed, when we were signed in '91. But I think the industry needs to get more creative. I think that what's happened, what I sense and many artists and people sense, is that it's become dominated by money and the need to make more money and the need to safeguard one's pots, and I think the problem with that is that the creativity has gone out of the industry, the fun. And you know, you talk to people who were around, you talk to the Rupert Perrys of this world who were in record companies in the late 60s and 70s, and you see a documentary such as the 50 Years of Ireland, and you recognise that there's something hugely missing now. And I think that's fun and creativity. That was the main thing. And I think the problem is, in the last 10, 15 years, it's become about money, and the money men are now running the companies. And whereas traditionally it's always been the creatives. It's, you know, Chris Blackwell was a music producer. So I think that's a long-term thing, and I think that's important for the general health of the industry. And I think that, you know, what's great about the moment, what's fantastic, and is the very fact that we're living in this time of change, the huge uncertainty, and of course, these times are always accompanied by fear for some people. But I think there's huge scope for massive innovation and creativity, and that's exactly what this industry needs, in my humble opinion. The whole point was that it's become apparent that obviously we're in this time of change, and while the industry is being consulted by government and technology companies and stuff like that, nobody was actually talking to artists, the creators of this music. Nobody was asking us what we thought. And, you know, and some of us, and I talk collectively, brothers and sisters, some of us, you know, have no interest in getting involved in that and just want to, you know, do whatever. But some of us do, you know, and some of us care deeply about it, and care deeply about, I mean, one of the strong motivational points for me is the fact that is to hopefully help redraw the landscape in terms of for young artists, so that when they get their recording deal, it's not weighted so heavily against them, you know, that all these things. So it's very, very basic idea to try and be involved, to have a voice in this, and not, you know, and a reasonable voice at that. You know, we're not like, I mean, we've disagreed that the whole file sharing thing is, we obviously came out and said we didn't think that the government's 3 strikes and you're out was actually a workable policy. And we were. It's amazing. You just disagree on that point, and you're typecast as the Taliban. Literally. And it's astonishing. And I again, it's been a real lesson that I thought that if in a strong and vibrant and healthy industry, you consult all parties involved, and particularly the creators. I mean, it seems crazy not to, but again, there are there are forces that within the industry that don't want to see that and view us as some kind of threat, and it's not a threat. I had a great meeting with Jed Doherty at Sony, and to his credit, he, when this whole file sharing thing blew up, he invited us in to talk, and I hope he realised that we're not out on the picket line. These are just, ordinary musicians trying to say, listen, just try and involve us in these discussions rather than excluding us, because if you exclude us, it just insults us, and also that's where this mistrust builds up, and there are a lot of reasons to be mistrustful as an artist in this industry as well. It's not, a lot of the goings on are not, and the deals that are made are not clear. A lot of them are under non-disclosure agreements, so we don't know what's going on. So it's very basic to have a voice in the industry.